Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast. Seems like we just recorded the Tour de France recap and we're into the Olympic Games road races preview, men and women's. The TT preview will be a separate podcast so it doesn't drag on too long, and it's a little bit after the road race. So the men's road race is on Saturday, I think. Women's road race is on Sunday on separate days. They're early in the morning, I think like 4 a.m. to 11 a.m., roughly Central European time for me and Benji, who I have here as always. And as always, the show is supported by our show partner, Lacole. I'll get into the profile first just to get your immediate reaction to it and maybe see if you think, like, try and draw a comparison to any previous one-day races that are this hard. 232 Ks, gradual climb up the Doshi Road, 4.5 Ks, 6%. Then they do the Fuji climb, 14.5 Ks, 6% descent. Then they go a lap around the finish line for like 40 Ks. Then the Mikuni Pass, 7 Ks, 10%. Then a short descent, then Kagosaka Pass, 2.3, 4.6, then a non-technical descent, I think. And then they do the circuit on the finish line. So Mikuni Crest with 30 Ks to go to the finish. It's got a steep section in the middle. When's the last race we've seen like this, one-day race with climbs this hard?
Well, it's honestly quite difficult to look at it like that because you'd say you've got mountain classics like in Lombardia and so forth, but I feel like that's still very different. The Olympics is ridden with teams that go from one rider to like, 6 riders in the max of the biggest teams. So it's going to be more tactical than it is forcing your way through this parkour. And because of that, you might see odd things. Like if we go back, it's now 5 years ago, in Rio, we had early moves already halfway the race with Vincenzo Nibali into the attack. Henao as well, crashes in the front group. And then eventually Van Avermaet and Fuglsang came around towards the end and ended up battling it out. So it was a very tactical race, and it also played out probably much different than anybody anticipated beforehand. And that's going to play in the cards of the same here. I think that before we go into like riders and so forth, I think we might see a surprising winner or at least a surprising rider on the podium because it's a tactical race and because it's different very much when it comes to the teams that are participating and how the teams will work together. There are teams with simply just leaders together, and then it's a question of who's going to ride for who and so forth. But parkour-wise, I love it. I like it. I really enjoy it. And I think it offers a lot of discussion, and we'll get right into it.
I want to break up the men's race, the profile, into two separate categories. The first is the first 140 kilometers, and that is who is going to be in charge of controlling a breakaway and who is going to want to get riders into that breakaway when these climbs are not outrageous gradients. The second phase of the race is obviously the flat 40 Ks, or undulating rather 40 Ks before Mikuni, and then what we can expect on Mikuni, who might attack their pace there, etc. Who are their teams going to want to drop before the sort of run in to the finish? Because we have, let me bundle some riders together. We have good climbers who will be wanting to hang on there to then have a chance at the finish, who are fast or more rouleur style, i.e. Van Aert, Bettiol, Ciccone, Moscon, Fuglsang. Asgreen is too hard, I think, as well. Valverde will just want to hang on. And then there's riders who will want to break free. Maida, Adam Yates, Dan Martin, those sort of riders. But first question, Lutsenko. First question, Benji, which sort of riders do you expect to try and get in a breakaway? I'll throw one out there for you, Van Sevenant.
Yeah, I think that it's going to be tactical when it comes to the teams, and that will decide who will go into the breakaway. I think a team like Belgium is perfect to try and do things. Usually in these kind of races, the national team of Belgium tends to control the race and go for their leaders, but I think it would be very clever if they played out Van Sevenant on in the middle of the race, for example, play them in a bit of a break, push the other teams in the peloton to really do something instead of just sitting while Belgium is pacing, and let the others pace and force them to pace by being in the breakaway. And that's why I think someone like indeed Van Sevenant could do that. With the Netherlands, you could even go as far as saying they've got Dumoulin, Mollema, Kelderman, Van Baarle. You could try and get Van Baarle in one of those breakaways. Yep. You can get, in the French team, you can get Elisson in a break like that. With Colombia, you can try and get Higuita or something in a group like that.
Craddock.
Yeah, exactly. Ciccone for Italy, perhaps, unless
No,
you want
I
to
don't
save him
think
for the
so.
latter part.
I don't think
You think
so.
they're going to save him?
I think the way he climbed in the Giro,
Mm-hmm.
which surprised me, I
Yeah,
think they're going to want to hold him. I think they're going to trust that he can hang on Mikuni. I don't think it's irrational to think that
yeah,
after what I saw in Italy. So I think Ciccone and Nibali they will hold. I think they're going to try and get one of Moscon or Bettiol in the break,
mm-hmm.
because in a break on Fuji, Moscon, Bettiol, the way those guys climb, if it's a bit hot, I think should be absolutely fine. I think Eddie Dunbar for Ireland, I'd like to see him
Yeah,
in a breakaway as well. He's a really good climber. Obviously, Spain, they've got to try and get Frailer, one of their guys, Frailer, Gorka, or Jesus Herrada
surely.
into the break. They have to. I'm trying to look at other riders that might try and go. George Bennett, he's probably, it's his best chance of winning to go on the break, I think, as well as Austria actually have a good team for this. Pernsteiner, Konrad Mühlberger with
Yeah,
Konrad's form. I'd like to see, well, Mühlberger's not shown much this year. I'd like to see Pernsteiner in the break as well. He was active in Swiss. So they're the sort of riders I'd expect. Mader as well, but he's maybe even too dangerous. Like, if you see Mader in the break, Benji, I'd want to keep that pretty tight.
you're right. I think that it's with a lot of riders, but then the question is who's going to ride and who's going to
Yeah,
take up
yeah,
that mantle.
exactly.
And with this kind of race where you have teams with only 5 riders, then it's going to be difficult to decide, oh, we're going to start pacing, because you're spending 20% of your team at least if you want to start pacing in the peloton. And that's where the tactics come in. And that's why putting someone in the front will be useful. And that's why it could become very surprising. Let's say that the biggest teams have a name in the front group, and then you've got a situation where you already need to see, I don't know, like United States offer one of their riders up to try and chase in the peloton. Ecuador for Carapaz has Narvaez pacing. Are they going to be able to pace against like 5 to 6 teams in the breakaway? If Germany, Slovenia has a rider in there, Belgium, Netherlands, Spain, Italy, good luck.
If you're Belgium, you can't let Slovenia get a rider in the
Yeah,
break.
well, unless it's like, I don't know, Polans, you can still try and.
Yeah, true. I mean, I'm surprised. A few weird omissions. Morich would have been better, I think, in
Yep.
the Slovenian team, and as well as obviously the big one is Mark Badun for Ukraine. Like, I don't understand. I don't know who Anatoly Budyak is, but Mark Badun would have
Who
been
knows? He might be a legend.
maybe he's better, even
Imagine if he
better.
gets gold.
Well, he must. If he's better than Mark Badun because he's been picked, Jesus, he must be pretty good. We'll watch up him on Makuni. Poland. Micah looked quite good in the third week of the tour. Kwiatkowski climbing better than I expected. I
Yeah.
think they have a chance. The big thing I want to talk about now as we talk about the second phase of the race is the weather conditions. I just looked at Damiano Caruso's recon ride. He just did the Makuni recon. The average temperature was 36 degrees. The humidity is incredibly high. We will not be surely seeing high watts per kilo performances because it's not physiologically possible in those sort of temperatures. So, I mean, I think that my expectation then is, Benji, there's more likely to be a group of riders pacing on Makuni at 6.1, 6.2 for 20 watts per kilo for 20 minutes, and there'll be riders who just can't handle the heat collapsing. I don't expect there to be just like Pogacar and Roglic 6.5 for 20 riding away from everybody because the heat surely will affect them too much. But yeah, who do you have any insight or knowledge on who you think is good in really hot conditions? A view on that, and also how you think the two Slovenian top dogs will go in it.
Well, we've had this ongoing storyline or narrative, at least, that Pogacar is less in very hot conditions and so forth. And that's brought to us because, well, the only moments we've seen him have a bad day was in hot conditions. And he's very good at cold and wet conditions. So the question there is that remaining to be true? Is that actually going to be the case? That's something I'm very curious to see. That's why I've got like one line less when it comes to Pogacar on my list here, and therefore it wouldn't surprise me if they end up having Roglic as their man for this. But it's like difficult because when you have Roglic and Pogacar in the same team, you gotta decide at some point who you're gonna go for, and they don't have like it's not like Polans and the other guy are going to Tratnik are going to stay up in that group the entire Mikuni Pass. That's extremely unlikely. So by the top of that climb, what's going to happen? Stuff like that. And I think when it comes to Spain, Valverde tends to be better in hot conditions than rainy conditions, but Valverde is also quite inconsistent lately. So it's very difficult to say, is he going to be good here or is he not going to be good? I think that a name you said earlier, two names you said earlier, are ones that I'm looking for in a potential podium candidate that are unexpected to do so. And that is Lutsenko and Bettiol. Lutsenko, because I feel like the hot conditions do quite suit him.
Yep.
And when it comes to Bettiol, I've got the same feeling, although I'm not 100% sure of that one. So those are like two outsider names that I'd love to see do well, because I think that they can play into that dark horse role. They can be that rider like Bettiol in the Tour of Flanders, where he won, where he was not a favorite at all. And he used that to his advantage because he went and nobody instantly reacted. Because, well, one, his attack was pretty powerful, but also because he was not the favorite they were looking for. Van der Poel was in that group already again. So, yeah, they can play into that role. And the same with Moscon. I know that he's not the most popular rider on the internet, but he's still a damn good rider. So, on this parkour, it wouldn't surprise me if he does well. And I'm also looking at Colombians, for example. We know that Quintana is probably decent here, but I don't believe him because I don't think he can get away on a climb from the rest of the people. And even if he doesn't get away, then he can't win. So that's where I don't see it. Uran neither, but Higuita could surprise. And that's the one at Colombia that I do see doing decent, for example. But what are names that you see as, hot conditions? Oh, I like it.
The riders I've really been looking at are not the riders who can just straight up drop everybody on Mikuni. It's who can re-attack from a reduced group on Kagasaka Pass afterwards. I am expecting a smaller group there on 2.2K's 5%, who's punchy enough to get away and hold it on the descent. And if maybe there's still a group on that little rise before the finish, who's quick enough to win from a reduced group or attack in the last 10 kilometers. So the names I like are Ciccone. I like Ciccone to be able to hold on and then attack from that group. I like Valverde, Dan Martin. Who else? Gino Maeda from the break as well as a long shot. These are I basically like a lot of long shots rather than the top favourites. And maybe that's a mistake for not appreciating how good Pogačar is, but I think Wout van Aert, people are going to be so concerned about going to the finish with him that it's not going to be like he's running against Kenny Elissol in 1v1 and on 1v2 at this race. I had someone else, Adam Yates. Adam Yates I got a big case for. He's been the strongest climber in the UAE Tour the last 2 years. He put Pogačar under a lot of pressure on her feet. He won San Sebastian at like 22 years old. Now, San Sebastian not always hot. It's can be cool in the Basque Country, but I think he's quite good in hot conditions, or at least I've not seen him struggle in them. High-level performance on her feet. My main concern is he was on the Tour de Suisse start list and then removed. I don't really see an explanation for it. Maybe I haven't looked hard enough. Now, was he injured? Was he sick? That wasn't disclosed. I don't know. But that's my main concern. He hasn't raced since Liège in January, February, March, April. That's like 3 months ago. So, but I guess maybe he's been peaking for it, and you'd be expecting him doing the Vuelta in hot conditions end of July, start of August. He'll be hoping to be acclimatized to the heat. He's also been able to go over earlier than the likes of Tadej Pogačar. So I like Adam Yates as well. So is there any reason why you think none of them have a chance, Benji?
Well, you mean like Adam Yates or
Dan Martin or, say, Valverde or Ciccone?
I think Valverde often had the issue where in these types of races, I think in Olympics as well, he was stuck behind. And he was always in the second group, caught behind when an attack goes, because he's the kind of rider that lets others do the work more than doing it himself in a reduced group that is chasing, and also in a reduced group that is away, because then somebody attacks and he's like, oh, you can close it. I won't close it directly. And then he's stuck behind and he ends up losing the race. We saw that, I think, with Rui Costa when he won the World Championships. I think Valverde was in the second group and Purito was there as well, somewhere near, and they couldn't work together. And good old days. I love it.
But I mean, good old days probably happened with the Italy and Spain teams. It's Olympics. Italy's going to attack Ciccone on the descent.
Yeah, to be honest, like you're saying, hold Nibali for the end. I wouldn't even dare to do that. I would.
Yeah, he'll get dropped.
In Rio, he actually went early, and he was in the early group that got away halfway the race. So, what if he does that again in here? And the thing with Nibali is that when it comes to weather conditions, it influences him a lot. But I've heard and I've seen times where in very cold conditions he's amazing, and when it comes to very hot conditions, often I've seen him do very well as well. So I feel like there's been a blurred line there where he's crossed that a few times, and therefore it's not that consistent. The weather conditions impacting his form, and in all honesty, I'd be surprised if Nibali wins the Olympics. Very surprised.
Yeah, so would I. So would the market.
I think that he's about the fourth favorite on his Italy team, and
Yeah.
therefore I'd put him as a rider in the
Does he know
offensive
that?
because I'm afraid that is undisclosed. But like I think that we're gonna see a lot of people just go early, and therefore it, like I said it a few times already, and you said it as well. This race might not even be decided with a crazy attack on Mikuni Pass. It might be more decided when it comes to tactics in the valley before and the climb before and so forth. You think
Exactly.
that we'll see attacks on Mount Fuji, for example, already?
I think you'll want to. I don't want to get into the valley later with Tratnik and Polance if I'm
Yeah.
the other teams. I want to also see what Wout van Aert looks like. So I would want to. I also don't want Belgium to have multiple riders. I'd want to put Bernard under pressure there as well. Maybe I'll just read out I guess the main riders on each team. I guess I should have done that in a more formulaic or professional way. So Poland, Kwiatkowski, Micah Bodnar, low-key good team. Lutsenko's the leader for Kazakhstan. Belgium have 5 riders: Van Aert, Evenepoel, Van Avermaet, Benoit, Van Sevenant. Van Aert, I guess, is the leader. Evenepoel also, I don't know. They're the 2 leaders, Evenepoel and Van Aert. Van Avermaet, I mean, if he's good at this race, then Agitator Citroen should probably cut him because he was useless in the Tour. I don't know why he's in the team. Don't know why Dylan Turns isn't in the team instead of Tej Benoit. But anyway, Netherlands, Dumoulin, Moller, McKelvin, Van Baarle. I think they're going to struggle. France, Cavagna, Cosnefroid, Godu, Martin, Elisond, no Alaphilippe. I think they're going to struggle. Cosnefroid probably won't get over the Doshu pass. It's 2K 6%. Got dropped by, what do you get? Dropped by Fred Wright on a 6% climb? I mean, for fuck's sake. Save the airfare. Italy, Caruso, Moscon, Bedio, Ciccone, Nibali, really strong all around. Austria, Pernsteiner, Konrad Mühlberger. Spain, Valverde, Izagirre, Brothers Zerrada, Freire. Benji called them out correctly for no Bilbao the other day. Denmark, Fuglsang, Asgren, Jules Jensen, Valgren. Problem is their best riders, the heaviest one, Asgren. Germany, Schachmann, Buchmann, Arndt, Geschke. Schachmann's been peaking to this. Great Britain, Thomas, Yates Brothers, Gegenhardt. I thought they'd be really good, but Gegenhardt looks bad. Switzerland, Hirschi, Kung, Scher, Mader. Low-key good team with Mader, I think, and Slovenia, the favourites, obviously, with Roglic, Pogacar, Stratton, Polance. And there's obviously riders on smaller teams with strong riders.
Ecuador. Narvaez
Yeah.
and Carapaz. I find Narvaez a really interesting candidate to do something.
Break.
And yeah, but also just in general, I don't know where to strike. Like a break would be more suiting because on Mikuni Pass he probably can't follow based on his Giro performances, but he's been really surprising on several occasions in the last year. And another rider that is perhaps overlooked because he's on a team that you wouldn't see as one of the favorite teams here, but is Merhawi Kudus. He's riding for Eritrea, and in all honesty, he's always been decent at very hot conditions, at the Vuelta a few times, and also at the UAE Tour or whatever Middle Eastern race it was, or Oman, one of those two. He was good at one of those. But in the end, what I want to say is he's always been surprising on those kind of races. Wouldn't surprise me if he's decent here, but unfortunately, he hasn't really showed that in the latter parts of, well, the last 2 years, I guess. He did win like the national championships just a second ago, which is literally like 2 weeks ago. And Ionica Reyes second about a month ago. And that was against decent competition, not crazy competition on Olympics level though. And I think that we're underrating the riders surrounding Lutsenko as well. Like, sure, they're Kazakhstani riders and not
Pronsky's good.
necessarily the biggest names. Gruzdev is not really the name I'm looking for, but Pronsky actually had a really good result at the Olympics, at the Giro. I mean, he was on the last mountain stage. I think he was top 20, and that does display that he can actually climb. And he was 16th on Volley Spluga Alpe Mota stage 20 of the Giro, Bronski, so can definitely be of help for Lutsenko as well. So I just wanted to throw that out there because I think he's a bit underrated as a domestique here.
Australia have Dennis Port, Durbridge, Hamilton. They're missing Hagen, O'Connor. I think it's all on Port, really. Didn't look great in the Tour de France. America have got McNulty, Craddock. Portugal have a solid top 5 favourite in Almeida, supported by Nelson Oliveira. Then Ireland is Dan Martin, Roche, Dunbar. I think I've done them all. Obviously, Volta for Hungary and Kangert for Estonia with Peter Pus. So actually a lot of strong riders that this parcours suits. It's not like
it's the Olympics.
Well,
they're going to send rookies.
If it's a sprint, if it's a sprint type parcours, you're really only looking at 5 guys.
Yeah.
With the tactics, etc., maybe there's so many riders that can win. What about Great Britain, Benji? What are you expecting from them? A team I thought at the start of this year would be very, very strong, but now a lot of question marks about Thomas, Gegenhardt, and the Yates brothers.
I put someone in the attack in the middle of the stage. I think a Gegenhardt fits there because, well, he hasn't been at top form at the Tour de France in my opinion. So he's the kind of rider I push forward for that. I think Thomas can be of use in a valley or as a kind of pacer for Adam Yates. I feel like Adam Yates is the strongest of the team. Simon Yates could be the rider that goes early on a Mikuni pass and goes for a bit of a push and tries a bit of a sneaky attack while Adam Yates stays on. Because I feel like Adam Yates is the more likely candidate to drop people on that small pass at the top on the plateau section after the Mikuni pass. What's it called? The other pass?
Kagasaka.
Yeah, Kagasaka pass. So that's how I tactically would see Great Britain playing this out. But yeah, it's a difficult one to predict because you know that the Olympics have been so oddly ridden the last 2 times, so that it could literally go every single way. We could see a group pass off and go into the distance early on with riders from every big team, or you could actually have a team that's like, okay, I'm going to control it. Yeah, it's your problem. I'm going to control it. But who with? They've got 5 riders, and that's why I think lack of control is going to play a lot and is going to play a big card in this race.
I think there's a couple of other riders like Vlasov, Zakharin, and Sidakov on Russia that question marks, but if they hit top form, Vlasov came second in Lombardia. He's an option. He won Giro dell'Emilia as well, the hilly race. Sidakov, don't know what his form is like. Mike Woods, I worry about the descents. So, if it was a hilltop finish, I'd like Woods a lot. I think tactics-wise, if Evenepoel's in a group, Benji, with a few other favourites and Wout van Aert's 30 seconds behind, he has to sit on, right? And then not pull.
Well, I would dare to say the same, but I'm afraid that they've actually said, I heard at least, I read an article this morning that Evenepoel said he doesn't have to wait on Van Aert if he's away, which I find a weird thing to say before the race because situationally, depending on where that is in the race, that could influence a lot. If it's, for example, on the Mikuni Pass and you're about a kilometer from the top and the gap is 15 seconds, you 100% sit on. 100%. Because if you sit on and Van Aert comes back and you get him over the top of that climb, he is a favorite at the front of the race. There's literally no other rider in there that is likely going to do better. And yeah, if it's, for example, at the start and it's 1 kilometer into the Mikuni Pass and he's already 15 seconds to 30 seconds behind, then you might as well just sit on a bit, and if it continues rising, just start riding, because if he's a minute and a half behind at the top, then it's done for, like it really depends on where it happens. If it's already earlier in the race, I would dare to say play a role and go into the attack. It depends on who's in the group with you, but if you're away on the plateau section before the Mikuni Pass, which I doubt they will do, then I would say ride a bit, because that will force other teams to have to take control in the peloton group and the elite group and start pacing there to try and catch the Evenepoel group, and that might put Van Aert into a better seat for the last climb,
I think, as well as for Slovenia, I've been struggling to think, are they going to do what they did at Imola last year, where Pogačar felt bad about winning the Tour de France and rode in support of Roglic, even though he had really good legs? I don't expect that again this year. But then again, like he'll probably still be jet lagged. He's flown over really late. He's had all the Tour de France press stuff after the race. I got to say, his shape wasn't looking as dominant in the third week. He won back-to-back mountain stages. Like, come on. But still not like stage 8 or 9 level dominance where he just rode away from everybody. And then there's the hot conditions. I think ideally for Slovenia, they have 2 riders over the top of Makuni, and then they can re-attack on the punches later with one of them. And then even then, if there's no Van Aert, maybe they both change.
Yeah.
If they've dropped Van Aert, keep pacing, and then who's quicker than those two at the finish if Van Aert's not there? Nobody, really.
Yeah, they're very strong when it comes to their sprint. We've seen it at LBL, both LBLs, with Roglic last year and Pogacar this year. When they get over hills, they are strong riders in a reduced bunch sprint, and they can beat the likes of a Valverde. And I think that at some point, was it 2 years ago in Romandy, Roglic even won a proper reduced bunch sprint. So he can definitely outsprint people. Pogacar, we've seen it as well because he's outsprinted, well, Roglic. So that does prove quite a few things. And yeah, it all depends on who's in the group. And if Van Aert is in the group, then it will be harder. But we have seen Van Aert have some pretty meh sprints after very hard stages.
Yeah, they can beat him in a sprint.
It depends on the situation. If it's a very hard race, then it can definitely happen. And it wouldn't surprise me even like Pidcock style in Brabant Sapel. Pidcock's a better sprinter in my eyes than Roglic and Pogacar, but it still plays a role, you know. He can still overextend and go early in the sprint thinking he's the best sprinter in the group, and they can play into that, you know.
So time for our picks. The odds, which I should read out, Pogacar is the favourite at $5. Then it's Van Aert, second favourite at $7. Roglic at $7. So Slovenia first and third favourites. Belgium second and fourth favourites with Evenepoel at $11. Then it's Almeida at 17, despite the lack of team support, depth in team support, I guess, and a guy that's never won a race, but still he has all the ingredients to do well here, descending, good climber, punchy. Schachmann, sixth favourite. I don't agree, to be honest. I think that's too short. I think Schachmann is going to struggle on Makuni, although he's been preparing for this a lot. And then even if he is at the finish, is he even quicker than some of the other guys here? Is he quicker than Higuita? Maybe. Valverde, then Moscon, Yates brothers in the 20s, then Higuita, Godu, Woods, Hirschi, Maida, 30s to 40s, then Lushenko, Ciccone, Carapaz, Kwiatkowski. So I like, as I said, Dan Martin at huge odds, Adam Yates a little bit. And yeah, I've had a few others. Ciccone as well at like 50s plus. I like Ciccone. Who do you like to win, Benji? Both in terms of value and then your actual pick.
I don't know the odds by heart, but I think that my riders that I see as dark horses for this parkour that are definitely not all-out favorites is Bettiol, Lutsenko, and Moscon. Those are 3 riders that I expect to do better than expected. And therefore, I think that my pick of them is going to be Lutsenko winning, because you got to think about their team as well. Their preparation towards the Olympics is also based on what their team does to support them in their preparation. And Astana is a team that is literally it's Kazakhstan government, right? Astana, it's proper nationality based stuff, and as a consequence, I think they've got more support for the Olympics in that team than any other team. Lutsenko has been saying for a while that this is his goal from the start of the season. He's been building towards it. He has been looking pretty great. His top 10 at the Tour, for example, he's been looking a bit less in the latter part of the Tour, but I think that it's kind of logical. But I think that a one-day race where he's not seen as one of the favorites could play a role into him being a dark horse to take home the victory at the end. And he's still got a bit of a kick in a reduced bunch, but I don't think he's the fastest if it comes down to that reduced bunch. So, yeah, I think Lutsenko is my pick. It's an outsider, but it's a bit boring to say Pogacar, Roglic, or Van Aert, to be honest. But then again, I think that it's closer together than people think because of the tactics.
I'm going with Adam Yates as my pick. Okay. I know, but it seems unfair because the Slovenian is so much shorter. I just think Roglic, the crash has interrupted preparation. Same with Pogacar, interrupted preparation. I don't really like them. And then Van Aert either gets dropped on the climb or I don't know. They all focus on him. So it's a tough race to predict. But I definitely like the longer riders like Ciccone, Maida, Dan Martin sort of style. Benji, I think, is a little bit on board with the tactics as well. But yeah, that's the men's road race. Let us know down below what you think will happen. It's pretty early start, but we'll be able to watch the finish in the morning Europe time. But yeah, we hope you enjoyed this Olympic road race preview. We'll have the TT preview tomorrow. If you want to support the podcast, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel if that's where you listen, or give us a review or a rating on podcast players. They help out massively, the reviews and ratings, or just give us a follow on Twitter at Lanterne Rouge CP. But we'll see you with the Olympics TT tomorrow. Ciao.